This podcast contains content that is graphic in nature and mature language that may be unsuitable for children or young listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Hey guys, welcome back. This is Kelly, and I'm going to give you a quick recap of parts 1 and 2. However, if you haven't listened to parts 1 and 2, what are you doing? Don't get me wrong. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you're here. But this is the wrong place to start. So if this is where you have been directed, go back 2 episodes to episode 16, part 1, Echoes of Evil. Start there and then come back. All right, cool. And for everybody else that has been waiting so patiently for the end of this 3-part series, thank you so much for being patient with me. It has been a ringer of a couple weeks. We traveled to Florida. Our youngest has 4 to 5 teeth coming in all at the same time, and traveling on top of that, and the weather being crazy back and forth. It's been a lot. Top that off with me not thoroughly double checking before we left and making sure we had everything. Everybody else got all of their things here, minus like a sweater and a blanket, but all the important stuff I tend to space when it comes to my own things. So my laptop charger is currently en route back to me. The laptop that I used solely to produce this entire podcast, produce, edit, all of it. So anyway, that charger's coming. It's incoming, and I have made do to be able to get the rest of this and edited and done for everybody, so that I could be done, so that I could actually try to take a deep breath, because I now know and recall when we first started this podcast why I was pretty dedicated to the bi-weekly, because doing all of this by yourself is a lot. I love it. I literally, when I tell people why I do this, it's my hobby. This is my fun. This is my happy. This is what I get to do for me. I enjoy this. And what makes it even better is when I do get good positive feedback from everybody out there listening, and everybody who comes back and listens again the next week or the next episode. It just makes my heart happy that something that makes me happy can also bring some kind of entertainment or fulfillment or knowledge to anyone else on the planet. Wonderful. So I'm gonna stop rambling now and real quick recap. First episode went over the crimes. We lost Miss Annie Bell, Miss Eileen, and Mr. John, but Bozo. We went over last episode in the trial of Lee John, who was the boyfriend of Debbie, who was after the murders occurred, then led the police on a manhunt for a little over 22 hours, and then fully confessed to everything, but said he did it because Debbie basically said, this is how I'll be happy, as if everybody else is dead. And he confessed to all of that. Pretty sketchy on the details. Didn't line up correctly. Miss Annie Bell had 12 stab, slice, knife wounds. Eileen had 23. That's right. So 23 times. And then, of course, Bozo, he had 1 gunshot wound to the base of his skull. And then after Lee John and Debbie both were arrested, Debbie being the eldest daughter of Annie Bell and sister to Eileen, ex-wife, and more recently brother-in-law or sister-in-law to Bozo. Yeah. Lee John is indicted. And Debbie is pretermitted, which I told you all about last episode, which means basically there was a hung jury. They couldn't decide if she was or wasn't, if it is a true bill, not a true bill. So basically they said, we'll just wait until something else happens. If the DA brings it back, whatever. So after about 190 days, she gets released. And then Lee John goes to trial at the end of 2013. His trial starts in December. And after, I think it's a 4 or 5 day trial, he is found guilty. He is sentenced to 3 consecutive life without parole sentences. And on appeal, the next year, he argues that they sentenced him without allowing for the cool down period, which, they said there's no merit there because your attorney said go ahead. And the other one was the consecutive life sentences, because they argued that it was cruel and unusual punishment. And all of those reasons that they appealed on, none of them worked out. The conviction and sentencing was affirmed. However, they did want to make sure, I think at some point he comes back, because the jury, they were unanimous guilty first degree on Eileen and Bozo, but it was 11-1 of this panel of 10 women and 2 men jurists. They 11-1 on Annabelle. So even then, like, originally there was still kind of like a, I don't know about this one factor, and we'll get more into that this episode. So where I left you then was in December of 2014. So we are gonna roll it back. Let's take the time machine, head back to February 28th of 2014. That's where we'll get started. Welcome to episode 18, part 3, Echoes of Evil, on today's episode of Sinlaw. Hello, and welcome to episode 18. I'm Kelly.
I'm Kyler.
And he's back, guys. Of course, he's going to skip out on the middle of the hard work and then just come back in and be like, hey, I'm fabulous.
I started it. I'm finishing it.
Or something.
But the middle is
All right. So we got the recap at the beginning. You got my ever-loving praise and affection for sticking with me. And be patient for this last part here. I'm going to try to keep it under an hour and a half. We should be able to get through it pretty quick, though, because it's going to be, like, damn near carbon copy of the trial, basically. Before we get back in, just like part 2 started, I'm going to start this one with the background. So we're going to talk specifically about Debbie. Debbie Mignon Adams was born February 24th, 1955. She was the eldest of 7 children, to Annabelle and Otto Adams. He passed away, I think, about 8 years before the 2012 murders. And this is where it kind of goes dark. It was easy to a point with Lejon because he had a criminal record. So I could pretty well trace every year of his life from the time he turned 18. Because there was a criminal record from the time he was 18. So with Debbie, though, I don't have a work history. I couldn't get in touch with any of the family to be able to see what she did, like hobbies, what was she good at, how did she grow up. So home life, how she grew up, if she was the motherly hen type, or if she always had a deep-seated jealousy, frustration, irritation at being the eldest, or what, I don't know. I really don't know. What I do know is very limited, and that is from in her history, asshole. So marriages, divorces, criminal record, which actually didn't start, I think it was like in 2000. So I mean, like, I don't have a lot. What I do have, and I kept looking because I couldn't help but keep digging, which I think is a part of my problem. Anyway.
Just keep digging. Just keep digging.
Okay, so we know that Debbie and Bozo used to be married. But did you know they were married for less than a year? May 05 to November 05 legally. It was filed in September.
Wow.
Now, the reason I say that is because remember how I mentioned earlier in 2000? In July of 2000, they were living in Concordia Parish. Now, Debbie filed a property retrieval thing. It was a civil motion, civil suit, to be able to enter the property that her and Bozo had lived in for the past 5 years, I think is what she said in the filing. Anyway, so they had been living together, but he kicked her out. And he didn't let her get her new first stuff, and she was basically using a civil petition to be able to go back into the property and get her stuff back. And, of course, true to form, there was an entire paragraph just about the dog.
Well, I mean, that was the only thing she called the police about.
All right. So that was the other thing I couldn't find for sure. I don't think she ever had any kids. I don't think she had any of her own children. So maybe that was why she got so attached to the dang dogs.
I mean, like, dogs are awesome.
And that may have been another reason for the resentment, but we'll get into that. Okay, so didn't get married to Bozo until 2005. They had lived together for years and years. I think they met in high school, from what I understand, just from the little bit I could gather from the interrogation interview that they did with her. Now, they got married in May of 2005.
Right.
Debbie filed the petition for divorce at the end of March 31st, 2006. It was officially granted in September of 2006. So they actually went through divorce proceedings, it looks like, longer than they were married.
Wow.
Yeah, so the divorce started basically at the beginning of April, and it went through the end of September, so 5 whole months. And then they were legally separated in November of the year before, but they'd only been married since May. That didn't work out. And from what I can understand, Bozo worked either offshore or on land rigs. He did something with the oil field or something along those lines, because he made damn good money. And I'll tell you why I know that. And this is going to be like a little extra, because there wasn't a whole lot I could find on Eileen and Bozo either, really, except for the court record stuff. An interesting find on that one. So stay tuned. The divorce between Bozo and Debbie was granted September 25th of 2006. Bozo and Eileen were married by the Justices of Peace on January 30th, 2007.
So just over a year?
Not a year, baby. That was September to January.
Okay, I thought you said January 2006 and then January 2007.
January 2007, but it was September 06.
Okay.
So they were, so 4 months after they were officially divorced, but they had been legally separated since November of the year before. Long story short, he married Eileen end of January. Now, that was in 2007, right? According to the civil records in Concordia Parish, Bozo and Eileen were also divorced. September 25th of 2006. Bozo and Eileen got married January 30th of 2007, about 4 months later. Okay. Bozo filed for divorce in Concordia Parish initially on February 2nd of 2009. So less than 2 years later. But that one just kind of hung out and didn't do anything. It didn't have any kind of special stuff. It was literally just like almost like a dissolution and not a divorce. It was just like, let her take this, I'll take this, and we'll be done. And then nothing happened until January 19th of 2011. So things must have been okay for a couple of years, and then all hell broke loose. When he filed again in that January of 2011, it came with a protective order, because he was alleging abuse, domestic abuse, and he was in fear for his life. And so they go back and forth.
I mean, apparently he had reason to be fearful.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, the amount of money that they're talking about, they've got a list of guns that was, well, like basically 1 page of our entire 3-ring binder notebook. But that's not, but crazy enough, on that list, the only one that they had a record of and a receipt for to be able to get from the house to be able to say if it was marital property or not marital property was Annie Bell's shotgun. The same shotgun that was used to take off the top of Bozo's head a year after their divorce was final.
Interesting.
Yeah. The Remington shotgun. Or so we have been made to believe. Anyway. So Bozo and Eileen get divorced in March of 2011. It's finalized, the very end of March. So technically, they weren't married either. So
It's just a whole bunch of divorced fools all living.
Debbie's ex-husband, ex-brother-in-law, was living out with her ex-sister-in-law?
And sister's ex-husband, ex-brother-in-law.
At which it honestly made more sense because I found a 911 call, and we talked a little bit about this in part 2, but the 911 call that Eileen made about the two, Lee John, senior and junior, causing a ruckus, when she called the 911 operator, she identified herself as her second husband's, or no, her first husband's last name.
The one that she ran to the house of?
Fields. Scott Fields. Y'all might remember that name. That is also the same person and property and home where Debbie ran the night of these murders.
Oh,
she ran up the road to Scott Fields' house, who was her Eileen. That was her ex-husband. Eileen's ex-husband lived up the road where Debbie went to call 911 from.
Oh, I never actually grasped that.
Yes.
I this entire time thought that she ran to her own ex-husband's.
No. She ran to her sister's ex-husband's house. And
tells me they've been sharing husbands for a long time.
Shit. So, the reason that I can be so sure about this is because Scott Fields is mentioned to be handicapped. I think he got into an accident or something, and so he's permanently handicapped. And when she called 911, Eileen specifically says, send the cops quick because Lee is here trying to jump on me and my handicapped husband. And from what I can tell, they hadn't got remarried because she was quote-unquote living with Bozo out in the shed, right? Let me make it a little bit more sense for you. In 2005, okay? Remember back when he was married to Debbie? Yeah.
Which
Bozo. Bozo was married to Debbie in 2005.
Right.
For like 7 months. But just after they got married, in July, Bozo took out a loan. And because they were married, it became marital property, marital debt. Then they got divorced. Okay. Then he remarries the sister, or then he marries Eileen, whatever. And she signs on to this loan to keep it, whatever, you know. So now he has married and divorced one who was a part of the initial loan. Married the sister, got her to sign on in some form. So in February of 2012, a mere 6 months before Bozo, Eileen, and Annabelle are murdered, they receive a civil motion. All three, Debbie, Eileen, and Bozo, all three listed, they have a motion to pay back this loan, whether it be in property or however else. They're going to get it. They're going to get their money back. This was I don't even remember how much it said that loan was. It was upwards of like $30-something thousand, which at the time was not too big a deal. Remember I told you he had oil field money. But something went bad. I don't know what it was. I don't have any clue. I didn't get that kind of insight.
The oil field went bad?
Maybe, possibly. But he had, the different properties and different things. But when they filed that petition on all three of them in 2012, that February, that, in my best guesstimation, was the hard times that Bozo and Eileen had fallen on, which caused them to move in with Annie. And at the time that they were murdered, all three of them were actually going through bankruptcy claims to be able to get rid of this debt. You want to talk about, I thought we were in a rice pressure cooker in the volcanoes and all the things. I thought it was bad. I didn't know. Can you imagine? Not only has your younger sister taken your husband But now they're telling you that you still gotta pay this debt. And he's married to your little sister. And they done got divorced so that they can try to get bankruptcy. And that's what I honestly believe that whole thing was. I think that they got divorced because that would be the best way to try to financially and keep. I think they were trying to keep Eileen's stuff separate from Bozo's, but I don't know. That's literally all guessing and guesstimation. Don't take any of that to any kind of bank because nobody will cash that check. Because that's what it looked like to me. So that's what I found when I went to go. Literally, all I was going to do is to check the divorce records. That's it.
Anytime she starts with literally, there's going to be an explanation.
So that's what I got. That's where I'm at. So where initially I didn't have, like, I could see the resentment. Like, I could see, but I mean, it had been so many years ago, and there, you'd think you'd get over it. Yeah, you get a little drunk, you get in your feelings, you get upset about it again, but not enough to kill somebody, right? Not to keep on and keep on. Now, you throw money on top of that, you throw stress of the money on top of that, and you throw the possibility of not getting paid by the government to take care of your mama now because you're gonna have to claim bankruptcy. Yeah. There is no mention of any of this shit in any of the court records, just so everybody is aware.
This is just personal.
This is literally, this is open to the public, civil documents, but in my mind, money weighs heavier on the trifecta of why I'm going to kill you. Jealousy, money.
Especially when they've already been living with it's been since 2007. Since they've been trying to figure their own shit out.
Exactly, and that's my whole thing is, like, this was a catalyst and a half.
Yeah, and that hit
right at the beginning of 2012 that blindsided Debbie, who thought she was done with all of this shit with Bozo. And then to come back, and now that they're broke, that she's going to have to, like, assume this debt in the same way that they do, and she's done left this mother heifer, and he's done left her for her younger sister. Are you kidding?
I can see that not going over well.
Not even a little bit. So,
to say the least.
To say the very least. So that was done at the beginning of 2012, in February of 2012. So everybody's, obviously now I understand why everybody's always and yin-yanging. I believe is how Lee John put it, yin-yanging. From what I can tell, so Debbie went from Debbie Minion Adams to White, then to Ellard, and then back to Adams.
Man, can you imagine what she'd have to write on her
I'm telling you.
I already can't remember all of them.
So I couldn't find any information about the first guy. I have no idea who that was. I know his last name was White. That's it. Because that was initially what I went to Concordia for, to see if she didn't marry him in Concordia. So, no idea who her first husband was. Ellard Bozo was her second husband. Now, from what I can understand from her criminal history, I have theft in 99, marijuana possession and paraphernalia in 2000, nothing else really until 2009, where she pled guilty to a misdemeanor driving while intoxicated. And somewhere in the early aughts, her and Bozo actually got arrested for illegal fishing. So anyway, in early aughts, the illegal fishing, 2009, the DWI she pled guilty to, and then again in 2012, early 2012, she pled guilty to reckless operation, and I think the other one was a possession of Schedule 4, which was like a Xanax, but she had a prescription, so they dismissed that one.
Still hate the scheduling of those. I feel like the higher ones should be the higher numbers instead of Schedule 1 being the worst.
Now that we got, literally the only background that I have is that, the civil stuff, marriages and divorces, and then the criminal history, all the way up to 2012 when she pled for reckless operation. Now, if we start back into the actual story of what happened, leading up to 2012, in 2009-ish, 2008, 2009, she started staying with her mother, and in about 2010-ish, again, she wasn't really clear on her dates, she started getting paid about $200 a week as her mom's caretaker. And that was through the state, so she was getting that straight to her, basically just to be with her mom like a child would be. So, and free house and free all the other stuff. Around the same time, within the year of her moving in with her mother, she was invited to a wedding. And that groom's bride happened to be Lee John Ponthieux. Ponthieux.
Because we had a viewer, listener.
No, it just say Weezy.
Right.
Weezy literally tell me, I told you how to say that. I grew up with them. They're Ponthieux. Okay, all right, cool. So anyway, Lee John Jr., he was also at the wedding because his sister was the one getting married. So that's where Debbie and Lee John found their fateful tie and apparently moved in and immediately started living together and immediately started having freaking issues. So nobody, from what I can tell, liked Lee John, and I think I mentioned that last episode.
Probably.
Debbie had, from what it seems to me, like you meet some random guy at a wedding and then move him into your mama's house. Okay. And then literally almost immediately you guys start like getting in trouble. Like he starts getting disturbing the peas, not drunk and disorderly, but he just they call the police a lot because he'd get to drinking, and I believe Debbie in her interview even said, I told him to stay off the whiskey, but he doesn't listen, because the whiskey just makes him mean. So in the 3 years that they were living together, they had the cops called on him like maybe 4 times. He had at least 2-3 different arrests for being either drunk in public, drunk in a car, driving intoxicated, reckless operation, disturbing the peace.
Oh, Lord. Because like when you think about it, 4 times doesn't sound like a whole lot of times to have the cops called on you. But think about y'all's life. How many times have you had the cops called on you? This was in 2 years.
Twice. The 2012 Schedule 4 and careless operation that she got, she was with Lee John, who he also got picked up. I think he was already on probation at that point. So, long story short, they were firing gasoline that heated up the pressure cooker that turned into a time bomb.
And then the other sister was the oil, and then the mom was the water. And
right, the water that made the fucking oil fire worse. Nobody had any flour. And then they tossed that whole shit caboodle into a volcano that was also sitting on a fault line, so it made an earthquake. I'm telling you. Bad idea. All of this is a bad idea. The family didn't like it. They didn't like the fact that Debbie didn't do anything about Lee John being there and acting a fucking fool. Didn't like the fact that Lee John didn't do anything, really. Like, I think...
Sounds like he did a lot.
Well...
Just nothing good.
According to his interview with police, he talked about helping out around the house, but I don't really know how far that went. If you get so drunk and belligerent that you can't remember what you took, how much you drank, or who was there, or how long you were, like, I can't see how helpful you can be.
Helping himself out.
But I do know that he got a job because he was ordered to by his probation to have a job within 30 days or he would go to jail. So he did get a job working at the pecan orchard, and we talked about that, and I know we talked about that because he was working at the pecan orchard when he actually got cinched up for this one. No idea about her childhood. No idea if this was harbored resentment from early times or if there was something with her mother from early times. Either way...
No, there's no resentment with early times. It's a decent whiskey.
we get all the way to 2009. She moves in with mom, starts getting paid to take care of her, moves in Legion, and then, according to what I found, and my best guess, don't know if it's for sure, but the information that I did get from court records was Bozo and Eileen had fallen on hard times, and I think they said that in a couple of the articles as well. But they fell on hard times, moved in with Annie Bell, which stirred more shit with Debbie, because at this point, she about to go bankrupt. The reason for the bankruptcy is her bastard ex-husband who left her for her younger sister, who are now moving into the property because they're going bankrupt too. Oh, and by the way, they ain't even married no more because they trying to not have to go bankrupt. And they're all mad at her because she's got this guy that gets really drunk and really rowdy, and they have to call the cops on him because he's unstable. And I have to tend to agree because his criminal history speaks volumes to how he acts when he drinks or when he's altered. And it follows straight in the footsteps, pretty much, of his father. He learned from his dad to get drunk and be dumb and go to jail. Like, that's what his dad did. That's what he did. But as far as I can tell, his dad never killed anybody.
Or his dad's just better than getting caught.
But it also would make sense why he latched on so tight to Debbie, because Lee John was born in 70, Debbie was born in 55. That's still 15 years difference. So, mommy complex? Because I can't find anything about his mama. So I don't know.
It could be that, or it could just be the, she's gonna take care of me. Like, well, I mean, same. But,
yeah, she's gonna take care of me. I can latch onto this one.
Yeah.
She's got a house I can live in. Mama Annie Bell, she's gonna let me live here and drink when I want and use cars when I want. And Debbie likes to drink and be dumb too, and she likes to complain about everybody else's fault. And misery loves some company. So that takes us up to the point where they're living together. Things are heated and contemptuous, tempestuous,
cantankerous.
All of the us's.
Except us.
And they're not us, no. So, Debbie, like I said, she was arrested initially for obstruction because once they realized that she knew what the fuck had happened, but she just, didn't say anything to any of the cops before they rolled up in the house with a guy who might have had a shotgun. Didn't say anything, so that's why they arrested her initially. Well, Louisiana statute and Louisiana criminal procedure only allows you to stay in jail without being formally indicted, whether that be by a bill of information or by a grand jury. You only have 90 days if you're incarcerated. I think it's 180. It might be 120. I'd have to look, double check. But I know it's 90 if you're incarcerated. If you don't get a bill of indictment and get served with, you have to be in court formal, hand you something that says this is what we're charging you with, and on this date you committed this act which was against this statute. If you don't get that by the 90th day, you file a 701 motion, which a 701 means I get out of jail, you can't charge me money. Basically, a 701 says you didn't do what you were supposed to do within the time frame parameters that you were supposed to do it, and I get out of jail, no matter how high my bond is. Because, I don't know, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this, but their bonds, once they were both charged officially with first-degree murder, were $10 million. $10 million. They wasn't getting out. So, Debbie spends her time, they get the grand jury pulled together, but remember the grand jury didn't true bill her. So her attorney, Mr. Robert Clark, he filed this 701, and she was bond obligations released of her own recognizance, ROR. ROR. And she went back to live in the same house where her 3 family members were brutally murdered.
Interesting.
Yeah. And continued to live her life until, the end of 2013 when she was called to testify in Lee John's trial, which she did, barely. But I still find it hilarious, though, that she answered more of the district attorney's questions than she did of the defense's questions. Yeah, well, if you think about it, it actually makes sense. Because the defense was Debbie did it.
Right.
It was all Debbie. She did it. She was the one who was angry. She had the resentment and the reasons. Lee John loved him and didn't have any reason to kill him. So, she pled the fifth on most of them. And I talked about that last episode because it was fucking great. And her attorney was right there with her, Mr. Robert Clark. She gets off the stand into December, goes on about her life. Now, I do want to mention again that she was in jail for over 3 months. According to the 701 motion, she was released on February 5th of 2013. Now, so that was about 5 months. I was about right. From February to December, she's still living at 975 Moody Road. In December, she half testifies for the defense, or the only witness called for the defense. And then he is found guilty of all three. 11-1 for Annabelle, but still, all three, because at that point we didn't need unanimous, still counts. And then nothing until February 28th of 2014, like I said.
And now we're back to the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, amazing. The DA apparently resubmitted their case to the grand jury against Debbie, Mignon, Adams, White, Ellard, Adams. And this time, they got a true bill. So they got their fancy snazzy arrest warrants, rolled out to 975 Moody again.
No perdition this time.
March 18th of 2014, they arrested her, took her in. She got a pretty new mugshot, which I actually will have posted on our new website at sinlawpodcast.com. And it'll be in the blog section. I'll have a couple pictures down there of Miss Annie, of Eileen, and the two different ones of Debbie are very interesting. You can tell that the time from 2012 to 2014 was not good to her. I'm just saying, her pictures from 2012 and 2014 are vastly, starkly different. And I'll show you, and you'll be able to agree with me. So, but here's the thing. Here's the catch. You know how she got 701 on this first-degree murder charge that they didn't charge her with? This is the same thing they were arresting her for. So they couldn't set a new bond. So she was arrested, booked for those charges, and then released of her own recognizance because her bond had already been released or reduced or taken out. Yeah, and they can't do it twice for the same stuff. So she goes in, gets fingerprinted again.
That one's a whole double jeopardy thing.
Kind of. But yeah, so basically, you can't have a bond set on something that you've already had a bond set on before, that you've already been released for those obligations. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to simplify. You can't do the same shit twice.
Can't do the same shit twice. Yeah. She gets released, but she does it. She comes back and actually goes to trial. She didn't take off or nothing. Not like she had anybody to help her anyway. At that point, from what I understand, everybody that was her quote unquote family had completely abandoned her, and that's actually something that she said. Her words. She ain't got no family no more. And that's what she said at trial of Lee John. I don't have any brothers or sisters. They're all dead to me. I don't think she said they're dead to me, but she did say that I don't have any siblings. Yeah. Because they basically all turned their back on her because they believed what Lee John said. It made the most sense. Just like all of the rest of her story don't make no fucking sense. So, fun part about Debbie's story, her trial went basically the same. Okay? But I bet you're wondering, how did they get the grand jury to true bill when they couldn't get them to true bill before? What happened? What changed?
They lost one dummy.
No, sir. I'll tell you what changed.
Ooh.
We love a snitch at the same time that we don't believe a snitch. However, I will tell you.
There are conditions and occasions for me to believe a snitch.
All right, so
we don't love a snitch.
Initially, you're not going to want to like this snitch. But then
the only snitch I believe is the one that doesn't get shit from it.
Bingo. Because she tried. She tried to use this for her personal gain initially. She wrote letters to the DA, she wrote letters to the judge, she wrote letters to everybody who would freaking listen because she was trying to get out of jail. Rightfully. I mean, like, nobody wants to really be in there unless... I mean, some people just do, but if you have information that you know is good, you want to try to use that to your advantage, which is why snitches are so hard to put on the stand and be credible.
There's no getting time off or anything, or at least trying to.
Right.
Because you gotta try.
Right. But when they come up and they interview her and they tell her, look, we'll listen to you, but we can't give you anything. We can't make any deals. We have no control over what time you're serving. And she says, okay, but that's fine. I still need to tell you this.
Right.
Because that's how bad it's weighing on her. So, Miss Tammy Lemon served some time with Ms. Debbie Adams at the Franklin Parish Women's Facility, I believe. They shared a bunk. They shared a cell. And they get to talking like one does. Yes, it's not a good idea. Anyway, so Miss Tammy Lemon, she writes and says, hey, I got some information about a triple homicide down there by the lake. Come talk to her. So they go talk to her. Say, hey, girl. It actually took them a little while. I think she wrote a letter back in, like, right after I guess she got sent over there at the end of 2012 before she got out in February, which would make sense. But I just mean, like, December-ish to January-ish was when she was up there with her. And according to Tammy, Debbie loved talking about it. Because Debbie liked to talk about the fact that she had lied to the cops, that she had watched the whole thing. She was there when he stabbed her mama. She was there when he shot Bozo. She was there when he stabbed and attacked her sister. And she said that they deserved it. So, I'm going to read you a couple quotes from Miss Tammy Lemon's statement. And there's a couple spots that are really important. We're going to go through them. Okay, so it actually looks like, what did I say, February, what did she get out of jail? She was released February, wow. So the 701 got her out of jail, released on February 5th, 2013. The interview with Tammy Lynn Lemons took place on February 6th, 2013, the day after Debbie was released.
Wow.
So the day after Debbie gets out of jail on a 701 motion, the day after they release her, Bubba Roy rolls up to Rabel and talks to this, at the time she would have been 47, 48-year-old black lady by the name of Tammy Lynn Lemons. And he says that he got a letter several weeks ago in regards to Debbie Adams, who was so they were cellmates in Franklin Parish. So she said we had conversations and then details about the murder of her mother's sister's fiance. So remember, keep in mind, because it's been a couple weeks now, when Lee John was arrested initially, and when he and Debbie both got arrested, from the time of the murders, they never spoke again. So, outside of Debbie having some way of knowing or hearing from someone inside the jail who would have had to tell her what Lee John said and didn't say in his interview, because she wouldn't have had access to his discovery or his interview or anything, and she was sequestered as a witness in his trial, so she didn't hear his interviews. So even if she had, because the trial was after she got out of jail, regardless, this Tammy Lynn Lemons has never met Lee John. She hasn't been out of jail since the murders occurred. So the information that she is giving to Bubba Roy at this point had to come from one place only.
Right.
So that's another one of those things to keep in mind. That corroborates and makes her a little bit more credible than the usual snitch, okay? So she says they had all got into an altercation, and then they left, and her and Lee, Debbie and Lee, were sitting outside, and Lee asked her, what do you want me to do? And she said, I want them all dead. So later that night, when Debbie and Lee were laying in the bed, Lee got up. She thought he was going to the bathroom. Debbie got up to look for Lee, and Lee was standing over Miss Annie Bell with a knife. And then she watched him slash Miss Annie's throat, and she said she ran out of the house, and by the time she got like a little past the street or something, she heard a gunshot. And Lee had done shot, quote, her sister's old man, which is her ex-fiance, ex-husband, had been shot him
ex-brother-in-law, current brother-in-law,
or something.
I don't know, nobody know.
And in some kind of way, her and her sister and Lee got into it. Lee was trying to shoot her sister, but the sister had hit the gun, and the gun went off, like, in the sky or something.
Allegedly.
And somewhere the bullet went off in the roof. That's when he stabbed her sister, or shot her sister. She said she lied and told the detectives that she ran down the street, but she never did leave. She was there when all of it took place. She lied and, quote, that she had asked God to forgive her for lying.
Wait, didn't she call from Scott's house?
Scott Fields.
Yeah.
That was the one down the road.
So she had to have run down the street.
She did, eventually, but after they were already dead.
Oh yeah, we knew that from the blood.
And this is the important one here. This is the direct quote. She says, quote, it's like she influenced him to do this. She is Debbie, him is Lee. But she lied and said that he was on some type of pain pills, X pills, or some kind of pills. And she said she had ran to the neighbor's house or something that's kin to her, or her brother-in-law or something, and used the phone. And said that Lee had she didn't know who had did killed her family. Unquote.
Oh God.
Uh-huh.
I thought you were.
Nope.
I was
not having that many issues,
because,
baby.
like,
Not having that many
you don't
issues.
tend to, but God damn.
And then Tammy said that she told her and a few other girls that she had seen him do it. And she claimed, quote, she wanted her sister. Okay. Quote, she stayed there and was asking him, why did he do mama? Why did he do mama? She wanted the sister and her ex-husband gone because her sister had started going with her ex-husband, and at first it was only Debbie, her mama, and Lee. And she can't pronounce his last name just like everybody else. And first it was only them living there, but then the other two came because they fell on hard times. And then Debbie thought that Miss Annie was acting funny towards her. This is what Lemon is saying Debbie told her. And Debbie said she felt like everything going on, her mother was talking against her for the other sister and Bozo. So they'd gotten to that altercation, right?
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. Debbie and her sister got into it. Then Lee and Debbie and Bozo, they all get into it. Sat outside. What do you want me to do? I want them all dead. She said when the detectives was supposed to have been caught Lee, they caught Lee with a pack of Marlboros, which was for Debbie's sister and her old man. For Debbie to say that someone done told her that her sister had hit the gun out of her hands, that's impossible. He remembered, Lee John did, in his second interview, because they found the bloody footprints on the sheets in the shed outside. He couldn't remember going in there. But they saw the bloody footprints, so somebody had to have gone in there. The second interview, Lee John says, I went to go find a pack of cigarettes. He was found with cigarettes on him. There is no way that Debbie would have known he went back to get that pack of cigarettes if she had not watched him do it. Because they never spoke again. She took off running after he killed Bozo and Eileen, or supposedly. Took off running. She wouldn't have seen him get the pack of cigarettes. She wouldn't have known that he had got them out of their shed, that he would have had that kind on him. I thought that was huge. Because that information would not have been able to get to Debbie for her to be able to tell Tammy.
And it's not his normal brand. It's the ones that the other two smoke.
That's right.
That's rather interesting.
Yeah, so she said she saw all of that. And that was the one part that really stuck out to me. I was like, oh dang, he barely remembered that. How does she know that?
Right. Because she was watching with rapt attention.
Mm-hmm. And
it interrupted her reverie.
Of course, Miss Lemon says that Debbie was happy that they were dead, except for her mama. She didn't really feel any remorse. She wasn't glad that her mom was dead, but she was really glad that the other two were.
Right.
She didn't show any kind of remorse. But, and she seems, I don't know, as respectable. She says, quote, I don't want to lie on her. She didn't say if she helped him. She said that she told him that she wanted them all gone. She wanted them dead. No, she didn't say she played a part in it, but she was in that house when that happened. Unquote. So I just thought that was great. I don't want to lie on her.
Right.
She didn't never tell me what he did with the knife. She said when you caught him or something, y'all got the gun. And she said that was her mom's shotgun. And
that was the marital shotgun.
Well, that was the only one that was in Miss Annie's name that they could say was not for either of them.
Okay.
So it wasn't part of the marital property.
Got it.
To have to be split.
I think you may have said it backwards.
I may have.
Anyway, that makes sense.
And then she talks about the other girls that were there that may have heard it. There were pre-trial up there all together or whatever. She also makes a mention about the fact that Debbie was bragging about it and a movie had come on TV, and she said she didn't want to watch it, but Debbie said, I want to see a lot of blood, a lot of killing, like she was sick in the head or something. Then she kept talking about this other person who would tell her more or whatever. So the other cellmates that Miss Tammy was saying, go talk to them, they'll be able to tell you just as much or more. And then they talk about when she was actually in Franklin Parish, which she said it was like early December through Christmas, and that was when she had shared the cell there were like 4 or 5 of them in the cell. So yeah, but the biggest part of all of that were the cigarettes for me, because if you step by step that out, there is no way that Debbie would have known, because the police barely freaking knew, because Lee John barely fucking remembered.
Right.
So that one was huge for me. So now we can pretty well assume Debbie was there, which I don't know if y'all are with me on this or not, but I was already assuming that. So
What?
Yeah. So that was
You didn't believe
that was the biggest chunk of evidence that changed, because they didn't have that before. And once they got that statement from Tammy, and they also did a follow-up investigation, because now that they knew that she was there the entire time, they got to thinking, you know what, well, maybe Lee John didn't kill all 3 of them. Let's look at this a little bit harder. Now, if y'all remember, I'm pretty sure I talked about it last episode. It's unusual for one person to kill 3 people with 3 different weapons. Okay? The shotgun / pocket knife can kind of be understandable. You've only got 3 shots in a shotgun. You hit one. You miss the first one at Bozo, hit Bozo with the second, and then the third she knocks out of the way, hits the ceiling or the wall at the outside of the shed, right. And then you're out of bullets. Okay? Then you gotta switch to whatever you got, right? Or
you have one person with one and one person with the other.
Mm-hmm. And then the butcher knife was just too big.
Red herring? Not personal enough?
Maybe it was just the easiest thing to get to.
I mean, it also sounds like the pocket knife was well taken care of.
Well, yeah, no, he always had that, yeah.
Butcher knives typically aren't.
Well, see, that's the thing. You don't have to have a sharp butcher knife. The forensic pathologist...
We've got two different knives and a shotgun, and we were talking about the pocket knife and the shotgun. I didn't know we were talking about Annabelle whatsoever. I mean, like, at this point.
I was just talking about the fact that why didn't they use the butcher knife and continue to use the butcher knife? Like, I understand why he switched to the shotgun to go outside to kill Bozo and Eileen with the shotgun.
Because the butcher knife was already covered in blood and they didn't want to alarm them?
Well, see, I mean, like, you shooting into their shed, it's kind of alarming.
Yeah, but he got within steps of them before doing so.
Yeah, no, it's an at-range weapon. But again, that begs the question. Listen, stabbing is extremely up close and personal. In the same way that strangulation is up close and personal. Strangulation is a little bit more so just because the amount of time you have to spend.
Yeah.
But killing someone with a knife is... You don't get much more close. The only downside of that, though, again, is, like you said, the knife gets covered in blood, it gets slippery, it's easy to slip and cut your own hands, and this is another one of those times when I have issues. There are no pictures that I could find in any kind of discovery anywhere of none of the hands, none of the body, none of the...
Dang it, Bubba.
I don't know. I just know that the first thing I would have done, knowing, well, they didn't know at the time that it was a knife, but after they talked to him, give me your hands. Turn your hands over, both up and down, even if you have washed your hands clean of whatever evidence may have been on there. If you've attacked somebody with a knife like that, 90% of the time, you're going to cut yourself.
Not if you have a good knife.
No, baby. Listen. Unless you have the ones with the block, with the grip that stops your hand from slipping.
Yeah. Which at least most knives that I've had have...
So your pocket knife right now has a block on it?
This isn't...
It does not. It's going to get slippery, your hand's going to slip. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I understand. I don't care much. Baby, you know how slippery blood is?
If I'm going to attack somebody with a knife, it's not going to be this one. This is a razor blade. This is for work.
Okay. My point is, there are no pictures of their hands. Not Debbie's, not Lee John's.
And I fully agree with that. That's
I was so
ridiculous.
mad. About as mad as I was when I realized that they didn't test the fucking shotgun to see if it was the same fucking spent shells that was outside. Now, I can kind of understand that, though. Out in the country, lots of spent shells. It could possibly have been from a different shotgun, and you don't want to take the chance of giving the defense an opportunity to say...
See, I never even thought about that.
Yeah, because if you find exculpatory or inculpatory...
Because I've not been thinking about...
In or ex.
Prosecutor so much as defense to where, like... You gotta test him.
Well, no, you don't, because that was one of Brad Burgett's, his points that he made so clear was, well, we didn't need to test for that because we got DNA. DNA's better than that, right? Right. But for me, if you're going to send it over to Mike Stelly and waste his time, at least let him tell me something.
I love me a Mike Stelly.
Me too. Love some Stelly. All right. And in one of these bonus episodes, we're going to talk about how much experience that man has.
Oh my god.
It's a lot, like 7 pages long. So, anyway, point being, they go back and they do this, I guess they ask a forensic pathologist, which I believe was not the same one. I think they had a different, let's see. No. Mariana Esserman. So... basically, the only major difference between Lee John's trial and Debbie's trial, which started on grand jury, true bill, February 28th of 14. She was arrested March 18th, and then she got out because, the double bond thing. And then jury selection for her trial, it started on August 18th. Real close.
Real suspect.
Real close. Alright. So... Alright. Jury selection takes forever. They try to get it change a venue. They tried to get jury sequestered, which I think they did partially. They wanted to move to a different venue. They wanted to pull a jury pool from somewhere else. They wanted... He went above and beyond all of the writs and things. They sent off Supreme Court writs asking for
Ritz crackers.
different judgments for things that I think it was Judge Leo at that time, Leo Booth, and they were trying to get his stuff reversed because he was denying, all the things. So
So clear.
no, you can't do that. Okay, we win. All right. So her jury selection began on August 18th of 2014. Her trial only lasted 4 days total. Yeah. So, like I said, really the only thing that's different was Tammy Lemon, and they had a co-defendant witness too, but you switch them. Lee John was on trial last time. Debbie testified. Debbie's on trial. Lee John's gonna testify.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is where it gets interesting, because his story kind of flip-flops, which you can't really believe anything this man says anyway at this point. He has completely killed every single brain cell he may have had in the beginning, and it is gone.
And probably at least one person.
At least one. And that's what he says at this point now, is that he accidentally killed Bozo. He was just trying to hold him at gunpoint.
Yeah, I love that one, but that's some bullshit.
I don't believe that either, but that's okay, because the more fun part, he tries to write Debbie letters, and they're not gonna let you do that.
That's just dumb.
Well, they don't let you do it.
That's
It's
just
not
dumb,
gonna
though.
However, he thinks he's gonna be clever, and he sends a letter to not his sister. I believe Charlotte was the sister of Debbie, and he sent a letter to her and asked her to send Debbie the letter from him. It was still intercepted. It still didn't happen. But
He's a little bit smarter, though.
I mean, yeah, maybe.
He trying.
Do read and do your best. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Dear Debbie, hey baby, I love and miss you so much. Let me store by saying... Jesus Christ.
Start by saying.
Yeah, no, I'm reading it as I see it.
Yeah, okay.
Let me store by stating, I'm sorry about all this. I'm sorry that you were in jail. I'm sorry that I don't wrote you back sooner. I didn't think you want it to hear from me. Babby, you know that I love you with all my heart and soul, foot soul. With ever bridge I tack. What?
With every breath I take.
Jesus. You
There's a part you haven't
ever
gotten
correctly. Ever heartbeat, ever heartbeat. I can never heat you.
Hate you.
I told you, I'm reading it as I
Go ahead.
sees it. Because it's gonna make my brain hurt less.
Yep.
I
I'll stop you
will
when we get to the part
always
that's
love
important.
you, baby. Until the day I die, you will be the least love in my life. That's funny. Baby, I don't know what happened that night. I know I messed up out her life together. Oh God. I'm sorry for it all. I can't really remember what happened that night. Alright, I'm probably just gonna read the way it's
Well,
supposed to be.
this is the important chunk right here.
Alright.
So, I can't really remember what happened that night.
And I'm
so sorry
if
you're
I
in jail.
lied on you.
He said it ahead of that. He said, I'm so sorry you're in jail, and then go ahead and say it.
No, but and I'm sorry if I, in quotes, lied on you.
Uh-huh. Keep going.
That just, Tammy. I seen a lawyer and I told him that I want it to got you off in more than one way. This one's not his fault. This is just a bad photocopy. Smell?
Smile.
Okay. I want it to get... Oh, I wanted to get you off in more than one way. Smile. Got it.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, I love you. Get you off. I'll do whatever it takes to get you out of there.
Boom. Stop. You can stop. You ain't my brain can't take it. The majority of this letter so far is how much he loves her, how sorry he is that she's in jail, sorry for lying on her, quote unquote, and he will do anything to get her out of there because he knows how bad it is and it sucks, and he'll spend the rest of his life in there, but he'll do whatever it takes to get her out. He can't really remember. He can't really remember. He can't really remember. Now, those letters were written before he went to trial back in 2013. Okay? He wrote another one, same kind of stuff though. Exact same stuff, how much he loves her, love of his love is the bet thing in every bridge I take. So, he writes to the sister of Debbie, Charlotte, and basically apologizes and says he understands that they all hate him.
Who's Shelly?
Shelly's his sister. That got married at the wedding that they went to where they met. Yeah. So, he sends these 2 letters. They don't ever get to Debbie. But even if they had, Debbie's done with him. She doesn't need him anymore, right?
I find it highly amusing that his cursive is actually really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really pretty signature.
And his handwriting's not horrible, except for the fact that he can't spell for shit.
Right, and see, that was where, in the first part, I was talking about his level of education. I think I did in the second part.
But he's got really nice cursive.
It's really pretty cursive. So you can tell he went to at least 2nd, 3rd grade.
Yeah, back then.
Which is what he says. And then, I found the other article that said he dropped out in junior high. But you can get all the way to junior high depending on which school you're at. And, I can understand why he would have left. But at the same time, I've known people personally that were about to graduate high school and could not spell, and their handwriting wasn't nearly as pretty. But the main reason for that is...
are we mentioning this other letter to Charlotte?
What did he say? What did I highlight on that one?
Well, I actually think the Deceit.
Okay.
Yeah, what's preceding is somewhat important.
This is
it's just
Debbie's sister.
I drive myself crazy trying to remember, but I can't. I just don't know what to do. I'm gonna try to take all the blame and try to get Debbie off. I don't want her locked up.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
And at least in this one, he's a little bit smarter. He says, "Not for something she did not do."
Yeah. So. Let's go with that. So basically, now they have those 2 letters from 2013. And then they have Tammy Lemon, who was a cellmate, with information that she could not have got from anyone else. Or anywhere else, because it wasn't widely known. And Debbie wouldn't have known if she wasn't there. So these are all, pretty good building blocks. And the forensic pathologist is the other kind of Perry Mason moment in the trial, because whereas before Brad Brigette harped up and down so many times over in his opening argument about the evidence all points to Lee John, it all points to him. There is one other person there that survived, and none of the evidence points to her, it all points to him. Well, in Debbie's trial, it now is brought to light by the pathologist that the wounds inflicted to Eileen were most probably inflicted by a person wielding that pocket knife with their left hand. Why is that important? You might ask.
I don't think anybody's going to ask. I think that's pretty self-evident.
It's going to be pretty obvious that John was not left-handed, but there was somebody who was. And she has too many initials to list, so I'll just tell you it was Debbie. Debbie was left-handed.
Demawia.
And I went back and re-looked over the autopsy when I was told that little tidbit of information, and it follows, honestly, because I think Kyler and I actually had a conversation about this and about how holding the knife, what direction, and if you were standing behind someone and, you know, cutting them and you had your right hand dominant, that the wounds would have been more focused on the right side. Now, if you were attacking from the front, I just couldn't see how the amount of power that it took to almost decapitate her from the front angle, it just would have been difficult, especially with a pocket knife. So you would have almost had to have been like holding her over the shoulder with one hand and then attacking with the left hand.
This is a very sharp pocket knife, and it was a decently sized one as well. It was what, like a 4 or 5 inch that we found, and that with multiple swings is more than enough to accomplish the same thing.
Okay. But on the left side, that's what I'm saying. The pathologist on the stand said it was most probable that it was a left-handed attacker from behind, and the way the knife wounds occurred and the tracks that they followed, it made more sense if it was a left-handed person attacking from behind. And you're pulling back. Jabbing in and pulling back as hard as you can. Okay? That's the idea that I got.
Way to stab somebody.
Well, if you are watching from beside the shed and realize that he didn't shoot her, and you've got the pocket knife from the bedside table.
I could kind of see, and it's a very rage-driven,
right?
Like jumping on like Spider Monkey and getting at him.
Right. Very rage, resentment-filled.
Right.
Personal. Die, bitch, die. Why wouldn't you just die when he was trying to shoot you?
I could see the almost looking like a golem.
Yeah, exactly. So, a very feasible argument in my mind. I just thought it was crazy because they've already got one man in prison for 3 consecutive life sentences for killing these 3 people that they have technically proved to a jury that found beyond a reasonable doubt that he did. Now they're presenting a case that it was somebody else.
Oh yeah, no, we mentioned that in the first episode.
And I don't like it. It rubs me all the wrong ways. It rubs me every single wrong way. Because
that's a lot.
I understand being a principal to a first-degree murder, you are still just as guilty. But I feel like that is a very specific discrepancy. Like, you have to, the distinction has to be there. And in this case, Debbie and Lee John were both charged with first-degree murder of all 3. Not principal 2, all... Best rain. I'm sorry if y'all can hear that. But that's where my conscience comes in and is like, I don't feel like this is right. So anyway, the major, like I said, the major parts of that trial were the cellmate snitch, the pathologist who said it was probably a left-handed person, and Lee John actually got on the stand and said, I accidentally shot Bozo, but Debbie killed her mom and Eileen. However, he was still just as puppy head over heels in love with her that day on the stand as he was 4 years ago. And that's the part that blew my mind. Like, he didn't get up there. They actually got permission to treat him as a hostile witness. He didn't want to testify against her. But he also felt like he couldn't just keep lying for her either, because she obviously just didn't love him or want him anymore because she hadn't written him back and she'd never made contact and she had been out of jail, so she could have, and she never did. So his feelings were kind of hurt, but he's still in love with her. Still absolutely head over heels in love with her. They did pull out some of the photos of the autopsy and the wounds, and he ended up falling into pieces on the stand. You could see he was obviously torn up. And I actually, when I was speaking to the clerk who was working this trial, she said she never heard that man speak, Lee John. He never said a word. Not in his trial. The first words she ever heard him speak were at the trial against Debbie. Which I thought was crazy.
Which I think is rather smart.
Well, no, absolutely.
Like,
but the demeanor
don't talk.
that he has when he's sober is such a light switch difference.
Oh yeah,
it's mind blowing. It just was crazy. Jury instructions usually take between 45 minutes and an hour, depending on the severity of the case
and the
charges and all that.
and how well
and their
the case
options
was presented to.
Right. But no, just the instructions part where the judge is telling them what they have to do, what they have to decide. That can take between 45 minutes and an hour, depending on the options. They're dismissed. Lee John took 45 minutes for deliberations. How long do you think the deliberations were for Debbie?
30.
Less than 15.
Damn. I thought you just said that the, Oh, you're talking about just the deliberations?
Just the deliberations. Less than 15 minutes.
I was trying to factor in the instructions and all.
No. Less than 15 minutes. Unanimously guilty of all three. Yeah.
That's great.
Because this was just in the minutes. They were dismissed for deliberations at 5:18. They came back into session at 5:32. So their actual deliberation was probably closer to 6 or 7 total. Yeah. Nobody was fooled. Nobody believed it. And, I think the biggest part of all of it was how hard she denied being there at all and then changed it. And she swore to God, she swore to God, she swore. And I went through that testimony, or that confession, the interview, the first one she did, where she started off, I wasn't there, I left as soon as they got into a fight, yada, 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 took off on him. She has a couple tells when she's speaking. She gets very repetitive. She gets very swear to Gotti.
Black hole drawing almost.
And then she starts to do the politician ask you the question. And you can see an obvious shift in her story and her interview when it starts to become imaginative instead of factual. And that's not hard to pick up on. Our brains automatically pick up on things like that without us actually knowing what we're picking up on. We just know that something's hinky and it's not right. So obviously the story of her, and this is my thing. I'm gonna put it out there. This is, again, speculation station. I think she was there. I don't have a strong opinion about whether or not she actually engaged with them or not. I could see her spider monkeying Eileen. I don't know for sure on Miss Annie Bell. I really don't. I don't think she harbored enough resentment, but I also, if I knew more about the childhood, maybe I would be able to make a better decision on that. But that one's a flip of the coin. I don't know. But what I do know is that there was not a single shred of drop of forensically attainable blood on anything of Lee John. Not his shoes, not his pants, nothing. And when you violently attack someone with a knife, especially in a situation like Eileen, maybe not so much Annie, but Eileen for sure, that would have had some kind of transfer. Some kind. Somewhere, somehow.
Right.
And they found nothing.
Not a damn bit.
And Debbie was awful clean for having run up the road. And I'm actually going to put this on TikTok, guys, because I want y'all to see the distances that she went from the house at 975 up to Scott Fields' house up there. And how rural, just in general. But I got a video ready and waiting. But she was remarkably clean. She was not wearing any shoes. This is very, again, rural. They're not blacktop. This is dirt road, rock road. And from what I understand, she was in her pajamas, but it's not real clear. But I also saw in her evidence discovery, she wrote a statement to, I think it may have been just to her attorney, but she said that the officers let her go back in the house after they cleared the scene, told her to change clothes, and then she drove her mother's truck, Miss Annie's truck, from the scene to the police station. Now, I'm not here to criticize or point out things that people do, but that doesn't seem like normal protocol to me. But in fairness, they didn't have her as a suspect at that point. They had her as a victim. And I can understand that. Trying to make this person who's just gone through a really traumatic event, regardless of her obstructing, they don't think she has anything to do with the actual murder part of it, so let's make her as comfortable as we can. Maybe we'll get more information if we keep her comfy and calm. I can understand that to an extent.
Ish.
Seems like a couple balls were dropped, but I think this was a really good learning experience for the
What do you think?
departments on a whole. I know that they changed the procedures for taking pictures at a crime scene. They don't have 3 or 4 people do it anymore. They have one person dedicated. Policy in place because of the storm that brewed out of one camera being used by multiple people, then realizing that those multiple people were going to have to decide which picture was taken by which person to be able to testify to taking that picture, because you have to have foundation when you introduce evidence. So, lessons learned. Everybody, this one, luckily, it was a very consolidated, very locked room mystery. There wasn't a whole lot of other options.
Right.
You had a confession right out the gate. Mostly. So, Lee John gets up on the stand, says he only killed Bozo. Debbie killed the other 2. They found her guilty less than 7 minutes. She was not happy. Not even a little bit. We're going to get into the post-conviction, which actually took up way more of the page than the actual trial. So, from the time of the murders on August 20th of 2012 to the time that she was found guilty on August 22nd, 2014, 2 years, 2 days. That's how long that took. So 2 years, 2 days. Her post-conviction relief and motions and hearings and filings and appeals went from 2014 until 2021. 7 years of post-conviction shenanigans that we're actually going to, and I hate to do this to you guys, but this is already, with editing, an hour and 20 minutes long. So, what we're going to do is break it up into and make it a part 4. I'm sorry. Okay. So, this way I can get part 3 out. And, what? Oh. I tried my best. I really did. But I feel like if I put the rest of her post-conviction stuff in here, because there's a lot, and there's a lot of really good stuff. Her and Brad get into it, the DA, and it's wonderful. But if I tried to put it all into one episode, I would be smushing it and not giving you guys the full Monty. So I'm gonna go ahead and say thank you for listening. Please come back. I'm gonna try to get it out, because this one I'm going to go ahead and post this evening. It's Friday evening the 12th. I'm gonna post it tonight about 8 o'clock, and then I'll do my best, because I don't have to work on Monday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So I'm gonna do my best to get part 4 recorded and done and release it on Monday, like a normal episode would be released on Monday, and that way we can just keep on cruising and get back on our normal every other week schedule, because this back-to-back week stuff is literally killing me. So, thank you for listening. Hey, there's a couple cool things, real quick. If you click down there on our name, you can click and it'll take you to our brand new website where we have links for our Patreon. Heck yes. Get you some, because we have these really cool little what do you call them, promos, I guess. Not freebies, but we will send I named it a commissary package. So if you do $5, just a basic, you get all of the Patreon special stuff, and then you also will get a little care package that we'll send to you with some really neat stuff in it that's in-law in nature, and a shout out on the next episode, all that fun cool stuff, and that would really help us out and show your support that way. If you're not into the giving money away to people that you listen to talk about crime, then you can always just leave us a rating, a review, or a like, or subscribe to any of our different social medias, and the TikTok, YouTube. I'm on Twitter every once in a while, and keep up with us that way. I'm actually going to release some partner stuff on the website as well as on the TikTok to show the video, because I think it's really important to be able to see the distance that Debbie talks about running from one house to the other barefoot in her pajamas at 4 o'clock in the morning. So, thank you guys again. I appreciate you guys. I love you. Thank you so much. Happy New Year. I'm glad you all are here. I cannot wait to get this year rolling with you guys. Take care out there.
This has been an Elf Audio production.